and that's rewarding. The first 20 years, I think, are the hardest.
Of an organization?
Of
your life? Of your career?
Right. Oh, God.
The first 20 years are the hardest. Great. But if you can stick it out.
Right. How long, oh Lord.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. Sad but true.
You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the show where we talk to women at the top of the entertainment field and hear their stories. What has it taken for them to get where they are? What do they experience every day? How is it for women in this particular workplace? Today I had the incredible good fortune of speaking with Jennifer Warren. Now, Jennifer Warren has been in this business a long time. She started out as an actress in films like Slapshot, Night Moves, Ice Castles. She also directed several award-winning films and actually won an Oscar for her documentary, You Don't Have to Die. Jennifer is also a founding member of the Alliance of Women Directors, and she's head of the directing program at USC. It was delicious to get to talk to her, and I hope you enjoy it too. Here, have a listen. Now we jumped right into the current investigation that the EEOC is doing in Hollywood about the discriminatory hiring practices of female directors. What is the experience as a woman in Hollywood, and what is it going to take to change it now that everyone's naming it? What's our next step?
Well, we're counting on the EEOC to finally bring a suit, because I can only think that they're going to find, they're investigating, and the Alliance of Women Directors started to work with ACLU, who then had brought in the EEOC. And so we provided directors who would speak up and give stories, and and they're still investigating. And I am hoping that they find. I don't see how they can't.
Yeah, the data seems to speak for
itself.
Right.
What other career, what other job in America are women at 6%?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, how are they investigating?
They're taking testimony of women directors who are not afraid to speak up, and they're talking to the people at the studios to try to get some clarity about why it is this way. Mm-hmm. And so I should think within the next, month or so, that they would be able to take their data and say this requires a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So, knock wood. And we're trying to help by providing testimony. And I just don't see how, with those statistics that are now available.
Do they have to be able to link the data with a willful discrimination, or?
Well, yeah, they're trying to get examples of where it was clear. And for a while, it was very hard, because even Mimi Leader and Leslie Lincoln Glatter, they were all kind of, I don't want to upset the apple cart because I have employment. But Mimi Leader, God bless her, started to talk out, and we asked her that. And she's part of the Alliance, and she's been great. But a lot of the working directors didn't want to take on that onus of saying that they had run into discrimination and talk about it.
Is it because of scarcity, do you think?
It's about scarcity of jobs, and they just didn't want to have any reason for their producer entity to say, we don't want to work with her.
Which is kind of more evidence of the problem.
Yeah.
If you're afraid to speak out because there's such little work and you're afraid you won't get it anymore.
That's right.
Maybe there's a problem.
Right. And there you have it. And there was, and for years, the Alliance has been pushing this rock up the hill for 19 years.
Can we talk about this organization?
Yeah.
So it's the Alliance for Women Directors?
The Alliance of Women Directors.
Okay.
We have about 250 members, We do events and workshops all the time. And this April, at the end of the month, we're going to have a big benefit and fundraiser at the Paley Center in Beverly Hills.
Oh, great.
And we're honoring those production companies and producers that hire the most women directors.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is there a long list to choose from?
No. And we were very careful in choosing because it was not as big a list as even you would hope. Really. So we're honoring Greg Berlanti, whose company has done Arrow and Supergirl, and has done a lot of female-centric shows and hires a lot of women directors to direct them. And Eileen Chaikin, who is the showrunner for Empire and the L Word, and she has hired a lot of women directors. And then we're also honoring this company. I don't know if you heard about it. It's just recently announced itself, and they're having a fundraiser soon too, called We Can Do It Together.
I read something about that.
Yeah,
but tell me more.
With this international, it's an international group, and this woman, Chiara Tescuro, was the originator, and they have this board of producer and producer entities and also actors like Jessica Chastain and Queen Latifah and some Italian actors, and it's international, and they've already gotten a lot of names and sponsorship. So they are doing a female-centric program of films, and they're already putting it together.
Great.
And they have Catherine Hardwick is also on the board, and they have a very interesting men too, but production companies that want to foster female-centric material.
Excellent. I see that the Women in Film is doing that too, having a lab.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of focus on directors.
Yeah.
Do you think increasing the number of women directors will have a ripple effect then on the rest of the crew?
Yeah, I do. Totally. Because there's so many good crew. And getting a job as a DP is, I think, the one job that you have less women as DP than directors.
Oh, I'm sure.
They're more like 4%, 4.5 or something.
Yeah.
Which is really hideous. But, I mean, like, the Alliance has a hotshot list of women that we have worked with personally, that we can personally say, you can be trusted because we have worked with her, we can vouch for in all categories. And so they hire off that list.
Oh, that's great. So all the categories for crew
All
you
the
have
categories.
on the list. Because as many women as men are coming out of film school.
You know it.
So at entry level, they're all trained.
That's right. And I see in class, now it's almost 50%. And I see a female who's better than the 3 guys beside her, and she's going to have a 6 or 7% chance of getting work, and they're going to have a 93 or 94% chance of getting work, and it seems really strange.
So what happens between class and job?
Well, I think because of the numbers and because they are determined to work, I think they're going to push the envelope. And I think they're going to get stuff made. And I think they're going to be hired because a lot of them are really good. And because of the numbers, I mean, at USC, there are a lot. And there are a lot of good ones. And they're not the kind that say, oh, I'll wait to be hired. They're the ones who go out and say, let's make a film ourselves.
Do you think it's a generational thing?
Yeah.
Like finally women are at a place where they expect nothing less?
Yeah.
That's taken a really long time.
Really long time.
Shocking how long.
I thought, when we were doing stuff in the 70s, that we were actually going to make a difference that stayed.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a big push and then everyone relaxed and
Yeah.
it all fell apart.
That's right. All fell apart.
Do you think men were included enough in the 70s to make it an imperative for them?
Frankly, I don't think men at any point wanted to cede any of their power or their jobs to 50% of the population. So I think everybody was all male, young and old, were dragging their heels. I mean, not all, but a lot.
A lot.
And I think only recently that's begun to change. I mean, recently.
Like last week recently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like really recently.
Really recently.
How do you think we make it an imperative for men?
Well, I think we have to be pushier than we've been.
Yeah.
And we've been very polite. And us too, when we started the alliance, I was, more political than the membership. And they said, we don't want to be seen as being pushy and being right.
Let's be nice.
Let's
women,
be nice.
We have to be nice.
Yeah. And I realized that even this group wasn't there yet. And it's only been really recently that I feel I have a board of directors that are strong enough and determined enough to really push this, make it happen, and that they're proactive and they're younger and they're much more proactive than the previous generation.
So we're done waiting for permission.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody still thinks we should be political, but this is a political point we're trying to make. I mean, it's...
The personal is political. I don't remember who said that, but it's true.
I like it, yeah. And because it's such a lousy business that everybody is afraid of giving up 1/5 of one potential for not having their job.
Yeah. But at a time when there is more content created today than ever before,
right?
Because there's 800 channels and all the internet platforms,
right.
That there's plenty of work to go around.
I still don't think there's plenty of work to go around. It's still not a great business because a lot of those people that are doing webisodes and all that are not getting paid, or they're getting paid minimally. I mean, not a living wage.
Right. Not everything is a network hour scripted.
Most everything is not
right.
a network hour scripted anymore. It's everywhere else. And in cable, it's been a success. But everybody on the web, you have to put in an awful lot of work and your own money and your own contacts and your own friends. Yeah. I had an assistant who was helping me for years, and she said, I really have to now just go for it. And I have this series in mind. She said, I've been writing it as a webisode, and I think it's really good, and I'm going to get my friends together, and we're going to do it. I said, you go, girl. And a year later, I remember reading before Christmas, leading into the next year, the New York Times said, one of the best webisodes is this webisode, Awkward Embraces. And here her name was there and her whole thing, and she couldn't get enough money to live.
Even though her website got that much attention.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't being hired for other people's content, or there was no
they're
money
saying,
in that
that's
content?
great, you want to speak at our thing, or that's great, you want to, work on our thing, for nothing, or next to nothing. I mean, this wasn't yesterday, this, maybe 3 years ago or something, but still, she couldn't make it go, and she had a success.
Yeah, there were very few companies that figured out how to monetize, when Google came out and gave
monetize the web.
Yeah.
Right. My husband was a producer, and a very good one. And we used to go to every the Producers Guild, the Directors Guild, the Producers Caucus, all these events that said how to monetize the web.
As if anybody knew.
Right. And they didn't know. And you go to all these things, and you come out and say, well, they don't know either,
Right.
So, I mean, more of the kids are going out there and saying, we'll put it up there. But even once it gets up and gets attention, it's still hard to get enough money to live.
So it's still the traditional formatting that's going to give people sustainable careers.
Yeah. And it's just getting tighter and tighter because everybody's just holding on so tight.
Yeah.
That they don't want to talk to anybody they don't know. And I mean, it's just so closed.
It's hard to disrupt power.
Right.
And it feels like in this business, it's so hard to get to the position you want to be in. The last thing you want to do is scoot over and make room for the next guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So nobody wants to give up. Nobody wants to give in. And until the big boys say, this is unfair and illegal, that I really don't see how any other pressure can be. I mean, now is the time in all our years of pushing this rock up the hill that at least there's interest in the press and in the zeitgeist in this issue. It is coming to be a recognized issue that one can talk about. I mean, that's within the past year, literally.
For sure. I remember reading the New York Times article and just having the feeling, oh, now they've said it. It's out there, it's transparent.
And that article was partially created by the ACLU.
Oh, really?
Yes. They went to Manola Dargis, and she helped.
It was effective.
It was effective.
It
It
really
was.
was.
You're right.
Do you know who all they are talking to for the investigation?
Well,
Or what types?
I mean, they're talking to now how much they've gotten there, because the first thing they were doing was going to take testimony from our side. Then they were going to go to the studios, which I think they've begun to do. And they're talking to the head executives of the studios.
Just the majors?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think they'll go into the mini majors or the larger production companies?
Oh, I think so. I think once that gets going, because I don't see any evidence that would slow them down.
Yeah.
And they have really embarked on this. So they're very careful. They do thorough stuff. And I think it'll take, months more. But yes, I think they'll be very thorough.
Why do you think it took so long? Like, is it a feeling of we're so grateful to have gotten in at all that let's not be too pushy? Like, I wonder.
Oh, honey, I mean, I used to see it down at USC, and I thought, these young women, it's, and presidential elections coming up, and I'm hearing how everybody's talking on campus. And nobody's talking politics. And I remember number of years ago, I don't know, 7, 8, that our dean, the New York Times had another article about, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, in the Sunday calendar, the Sunday arts section of the New York Times. That was several pages and they interviewed all the film school deans. And they were talking about why are there so few women directors. So our dean said, well, one of the things was that she said, just statistically, I see that more of the guys, when they graduate, get together and say, let's make our own film and put something out there. And the women do it some, but not as much. It's rarer. And the female students at the university were so mad at the dean for saying that, and they called a meeting of the faculty, female faculty, and the dean and the graduate students, and saying, how can you say something like this about us?
Is it not true?
No. And she said, because it's true. And they were horrified. And they said, oh, but it's not all that true. They said, well, no, I mean, statistically, it's quite a difference. I don't want to say it. And they said, oh, you're just... And then they turned to all the female faculty and they say, well, what do you think about it? And by then, I was just... And I said, frankly, you guys, I don't see any political thought until all of a sudden you got dissed in the newspaper But you have no idea of the difficulty that you're facing out there, both about abortion rights, about getting a job, nothing about abortion rights. The election was coming up, the second Bush election was coming up. Nobody thought twice.
They take it for granted.
They take it for granted.
They need to
And
pay
I
attention.
said, I've been working on this since the 70s, and you guys take it for friggin' granted.
And it's not over.
You know, and we're pushed back to where we were back then. I must say they did listen, and they started a women's organization that is a conduit with the professional part of the industry and alumni and stuff, and it's been effective. But I couldn't believe their laissez-faire, you know, let them eat cake.
I mean, on the one hand, that speaks to we must have gotten somewhere if women think nothing of it. You know, but on the other hand, the reality is still...
Right, the reality is that half our political system wants to take it away, don't you know? Anyway, the good news is, for the first time in 20 years, the Alliance is doing a fundraiser, and we're getting money, and it is going to be an event that people are interested in coming to. And we're just trying to reach out to everybody and say, this is an issue that you have to support. You say you're supporting it, support it.
Like by action.
By action.
Yeah.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Now, can we talk about your career a little bit?
Sure.
How have you seen the business change since you've been in it? Because you've been an actress and a director and a producer.
I tell you, it's just gotten uglier, and that's one of the reasons why I am doing more work and more work at USC, because it's really unpleasant out there. When I started, we're doing features and a lot of films for television. We would start a film on a handshake and a verbal agreement. And we wouldn't necessarily sign the contract till you're halfway through the film. Sometimes, even at the end, there was one or two times. You'd sign it at the end.
And you'd get funded without...
Yes.
Okay, I'm stunned by that.
That's right. Right? You're stunned by that. But
Yeah.
that used to be the way the business worked back then. NBC, ABC, they do their movies, and they would say, you're on. Now, we can't get the work done in time, and we're starting over here. Is that all right? You say fine, and and your agent said fine, and you didn't actually get the contract.
You can't start now, or you will have employed people, and you won't get your money.
That's
and
right.
Then you're in a lawsuit.
Also, if you sign them, and at the end of the thing, sometimes they try to break it, and it just was a different way of doing business, and it became now that. If there's a reason for them to try to break the contract and get something back, they do. I mean, it's really unpleasant. Sundance and Women in Film had this symposium, and they invited the Alliance to be a part of this push, which came in when they had the 50-50 directors at Sundance the year before last, all that. And we went to a symposium of how to finance the independent film. And they had top people there. And the statistic I remember being appalled by was one of the women in the audience asked, in financing a independent film in America, what percentage of the budget could you expect to get in the U.S.? And he said 10%.
It's all foreign sales?
Yeah. 10% can you count on to get from the U.S., an American independent film.
So do you have to be, does it have to translate to foreign markets?
Yeah.
So it can't be particularly, wow.
Right. Which is why so few of them are, so few of them of really any interest are getting made.
Yeah. Now, what do you think the deal is with every tentpole as a superhero movie?
Because it can sell foreign. They don't have to lip sync it. The story sells anyway. That's why we are where we are.
Well, there's no story.
That's exactly it. You just watch these
Things blow up.
things blowing up, and it's exciting for the Chinese and for the French and for the Japanese. And that is what the studios are making, because that's where they can make money.
And as long as they keep making money, I guess that's what we're going to keep getting.
Right. And I think what happens, which who was talking about it last summer, when enough of the summer blockbusters fail, and one of the studios is going to go down with it, all of a sudden people will start. And about 2 years ago, there was a bad summer that didn't pick up till the really end of the summer. And we thought maybe it happened then. But I think that's the only thing that's going to happen that's going to change things.
Well, and God help us if one of those films were directed by a woman and that's the one that goes down, then you can never hire a woman again.
It's true.
Do you think there's any truth to the theory that women go for softer material or more...
Well, that's what they expect. And so they don't expect any female directors to be able to handle the action-adventure genre. I mean, Catherine Bigelow won an Academy Award on that that's the only thing she does do.
Well, that's an anomaly.
Yeah, and that's an anomaly, right? So no other women can do that. So the only places they grudgingly give a chance is in material that is for women.
Right. Because the male experience is universal.
Yeah.
And women are a niche.
Right, and that small niche, even though we're, 51% of the national census? I don't know. It's disturbing, but at least people are aware of it now. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody gave 2 cents about it for the past 20 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like no one was really paying attention.
No, it was just nobody wanted to stand up for it. The women that were working thought,
"Oh, how'd I get in here?
Right,
they let me in.
This is a miracle." But won't say anything.
Yeah. You know, I found that at a micro level, just in my career, it used to be I would find myself the only woman in a room, and I would be so proud of myself that I was in there. And now when that happens, I look around the room and I think there's something wrong with the rest of you.
Yes.
That you think this is okay.
Yes. That's right. And it's surprisingly frequent.
Still.
Yeah. I must say down at USC, we're doing pretty good. We have the head of the directing track. I'm a female. The head of cinematography track, she's female. Head of the editing track is now female.
So what are you telling the young women in your program?
I'm telling them, you better know it's a lousy business that you're going into. It is a bad business. Nobody wants you there. And you are going to be one of 6% who get in there. But I think that what USC does, that none of the other film schools do, which is a help, is that when they come out from production, most of them specialize in directing. But they also, in order to graduate, they have learned to be producers, sound people, editors, cinematographers, and now even design. And therefore, they can get entry-level jobs because everybody needs an editor. Everybody needs a sound person, right?
And not everyone who graduates from film school is going to be a director.
That's right. And if they want to be a director, they're not going to get it right away.
Right.
So if they can stay in the business and make enough money to live by one of these others, that then you get your group together, you get your project together, you meet people, and finally, when you're ready, you now have a team behind you that you've been working with, and a lot of USC kids stay together too. But at least they can stay in the business. They're not outside of the business earning money to live.
Right. And
that makes, I think, all the difference.
Do they believe you?
Yeah. I mean, they know it's really hard, and they do know that they have alumni out there that will help them. And, the USC Mafia is a reality. And it's really nice because it's
Yeah.
a support system that they keep when they go out.
Right. And eventually you progress in your career so that your peer group is at the top of the heap.
Yes, yes. And they still want to help the kids coming in, perhaps more than ever, because it's harder than ever.
Yeah.
Because there's more than ever.
Did you have a mentor?
Nope.
Are you a mentor?
Yes.
It seems like you would be doing it constantly.
Yes, I am. And Jen McGowan, who did this lovely film earlier this year, Kelly and Cal, and won the South by Southwest Festival. She was my student assistant in several classes, and she's been out for about, I don't know, maybe 6 years, and she's starting to have a real career.
Wow.
And we did the Alliance through a screening at ICM for her of Kelly and Cal, and it was really nice.
That must be very satisfying.
Yeah, that was
Really good.
great. And so there's a handful you keep in touch with, and they always are emailing me about, can we meet? Can we talk about this? I mean,
Can I pick your brain? Can I bounce this off
right,
you?
right. So, yeah, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
And I think the Alliance has created a real support system for a lot of women. And it's grown, and it's really burgeoning.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And that's rewarding. The first 20 years, I think, are the hardest.
Of an organization?
Of
your life? Of your career?
Right. Oh, God.
The first 20 years are the hardest. Great. But if you can stick it out.
Right. How long, oh Lord.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. Sad but true.
Now let me ask you something I ask everybody.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a success?
Yeah, I do. Because I've been able to stay in this business one way or another all my life.
Yeah.
And I'm still working in it as an old person. And it keeps me young and interested and excited, and the fact I can be working with these kids and passing on, I worked with Uta Hagen for a long time. I mean, I have a lot of that history that people, don't know anymore. So I feel very lucky to have had what I've had. I do.
Do you consider yourself a badass?
Loudmouth. I think it may be the same. I don't know.
It might be the same.
Yeah.
It might be the same.
I always have to say, shut up, Jennifer, every so often.
No, don't shut up. Don't shut up. I imagine you have some good stories.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite, like hilarious or wacky or who could even make this up kind of story?
Well, yeah. I have a lot of them that I vowed not to tell.
There's always those. You can always tell it and not tell us who.
But there was a funny thing that Paul Newman did with me. I mean, we were doing Slapshot, and he somehow discovered that I'd like to drive fast, right, car. And so we were about halfway through the thing. He said, Jennifer, what are you doing Sunday? They've given me this race course, and the owners of the race, I guess it was stock car race, big stadium, 5,000 people, 10, I don't know, big stadium. They've given us the stadium and two of their cars. Would you like to drive? I said, sure, yeah. Did
the studio know this was happening while you were under the workers' comp
Right.
policy?
Shh. I'm sure he told nobody. So we drove over, to this town. Not far. We were shooting in smart downtown Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
As you do.
Yes, it was not exactly the armpit of the state, but close, I would say. And we drove over to this other town that had this big track, right? And so there's two owners, right? They've closed the track down for Sunday to give it to Paul Newman, right? And he's been, racing it by that point. So they're so thrilled to meet him, and they say, here are our cars. And they're these cars, these stock cars that have like 600 horsepower, these engines. When you turn them on, it's deafening. I mean, it's amazing what's under that hood there, right? So they said, oh, I'm so glad you brought Jennifer. Yes, you can drive this car. And Paul, you can drive this car.
Did you know how to drive one of these cars?
Well, I'd never done it before.
I'll figure it out.
But I thought I knew how to drive. So Newman and I take off in this track, this enormous stadium, no one else there except these two little families, right, in the front. And I start just to get my, feeling about the track is an earth track, dirt track. So when you go around the sides, your back wheels spin out, and that's part of, you have to, so here I must go about, 95 around the turns and stuff, and I was getting all juiced up. And I see Newman's going closer and closer because he wants, of course, to do the smallest turn. I'm up there more on the outside of the track. He's down there, of course, near the... And then he bumps into one of the stanchions holding the inside ring up and crashes this guy's car.
Oh, no.
Newman does.
We're not going to be asked back.
Could be asked back. It was so embarrassing but funny, and I was the one that was doing great, and it was very odd. But they were totally gracious. But
was the car wrecked?
Well, it wasn't happy. It won't be too bad, But
did they just forgive him?
Yes, totally. That's
a perk of being a star.
Yes.
Right there.
Right. You can trash his car, and it's not a problem. And they were really sweet about it, and he was very funny about it. And it was just the weirdest thing to have happened.
And he wasn't injured?
No.
And you both went back to work the next day like nothing had happened?
Yes.
Yeah, we're not out racing cars this weekend. Right. No, we're good. We're here to work.
Johnstown had such a hard time recovering from Slapshot being there. That was not easy. And we were asked to address the Chamber of Commerce at the end, and kind of thank them. And this whole, room full of people. And I said, there's a film that you probably remember called Tea and Sympathy. It came out years ago. It was a famous film. And at the end, Deborah Carr says to her young lover, you will talk of this later, and when you do, be kind. So I said, that is my wish for you when you talk about Slapshot later, and you will be kind.
Oh, they must have loved that.
Yeah, they were great. But boy, we hit that town like a ton of bricks. It's always interesting,
Never a dull moment.
No.
I mean, it is fun.
It
Show
is.
business.
Yeah, it is.
Who's a favorite person you ever worked with?
Gene Hackman. I just thought he was brilliant. He just is an amazing actor. He just has a line to the truth that is immaculate.
Now, did you have a lot of acting training?
Well, I got into the business before I had training because my mother was an actress in New York. I grew up just up the street from NYU.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, in University Place at 9th Street.
Oh my gosh, that's right there.
Yeah, that's where I was born and raised.
Oh, wow.
And my father was a dentist and a playwright, and my mother was an actress, and and she stayed in it quite a while, and I started working as an understudy in off-Broadway theaters during high school.
Wow.
And summer stock, during high school years. I just always was so interested in it, and they would have, readings at the house, and I was a kid, would sit there and watch and have my opinions about who was better than the other. I just loved it and thought I had an insight into it. And then I didn't want to be a dumb actor, so I went to school and I went to University of Wisconsin. I want to get out of New York, finally. And
did you go to Madison?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, and a lot of our kids I went to a very progressive school in the village in high school, and some of our kids went there from, down in Greenwich Village, and they liked it. And so I thought, well, if she liked it, I like it. And, but didn't take any theater or any communications, and just did it extracurricularly, and the theater department. And I follow them to this day, because the theater department nominated me for a McKnight Fellowship to the Tyrone Guthrie Theater, even though I had not taken one class in their department. And I will always be totally grateful, because and now that I'm in academia, the thought of nominating somebody who's outside of your department, has never taken a class, is astonishing.
Well, you must have made an impression.
Well, I did a lot of, acting and light, and I earned my way by lighting shows. I liked electrics a lot. And so I would hire on to the union shows that would go through Madison and earn some union money, which was godsend. But they nominated me to the Guthrie, and I was accepted, and I just blessed them. And
then what did you do at the Guthrie?
I was there for the last season that Tyrone Guthrie was there, and understudied a lot of stuff, and did some of their experimental theater, and it was just fabulous. I was there 1 year for their whole season, and understudied, and was stage manager, and was, acting, and...
That's an education.
Yeah, Guthrie was there. He was just wonderful. Wow. Yeah, wonderful.
I mean, even today, the Guthrie is still where you want to be.
Yeah.
So then after that, you go back to New York?
Well, I married a guy that I met at school, and he was a director and got hired by Wesleyan University to run the theater department. So I went with him that next year, and then the following year we went into New York for a sabbatical, and then I got a show that was a big hit, ran for 2 years, and we broke up, and he went back to Wesleyan, and later I remarried, and that's when I did that show for 2 years, and then I did
when you say show, was it like a theater show or a television show?
No, I was still in theater.
Okay.
And I was just doing theater, and then I started to do commercials, and then I did a film with Bob De Niro. That was a low budget film, and then after that I got Night Moves, and I loved that film, and that's when I moved out here because I really liked doing film. I'd done several plays on Broadway over the years, 3-4 different plays, and I liked film because you can read what somebody's thinking without saying it. The camera can do that.
Yeah.
And in theater, all that non-spoken stuff is gone, and I just really love that. So then I moved out here, and ended up marrying somebody who I met in New York the previous year, who lived out here, Roger and I. He was a producer, and I kept on working and doing films and a lot of films for television and stuff. And then I started directing and then producing, and had a wonderful boy on the way. And Roger and I were married for 35 years. Wow. And my son just had his second boy, and I have 2 grandchildren.
Congratulations.
In New York, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yes, I just went in at spring vacation and for the second one being born.
Oh, were you in the room?
No, but I was there about 2 hours later.
Oh, so exciting.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Now, how was it for you? Were you working while your son was young?
Yeah, I was.
How'd you work it out?
Never easy, but one thing I learned from my first marriage was when Roger and I started going together, I said, I'm getting serious. I said, we have to talk ahead of time because I want to continue working and continue with my career because I love it. And I want to know ahead of time if that's something you can live with. Because a lot of men can't.
That was really smart.
Well, I thought I knew my first husband, but boy, if I wasn't going to be there, he was just...
Wasn't having it.
No. I knew because it was an issue where I thought there would be none. I thought he knew me that well. And I thought, I'm never going to commit without letting my partner know that if he can live with it, all right, but if he can't, we better know it now.
Yeah. I think people now it's so easy to not have the conversation and then slip into gender roles you never meant to once a baby comes or once you get married.
Right. So not that it was even though he agreed and understood, even though when the reality of it is you've been away for a couple months and you come back and then you're supposed to go away again, it's hard.
Yeah.
And, I turned down some things I probably shouldn't have because I'd been away a lot before. I turned down Cagney and Lacey.
Oh. Was that painful?
Well, no. You know why? Because Tyne and I were friends, and they would invite me on the show, and I do different parts every so often. Because
was it the Tyne role you were originally up for?
Yes, and I thought I should be up for the other role, which was one of the other reasons why I... Also, I didn't think they could keep the quality of the scripts up, and I was wrong about that. Really. I thought, I said that to them. It's going to be hard to keep the quality of the scripts. No, we have this. And then they did have
Well, they took that note.
Yeah, you talk about Big Mouth. You getting it?
You're like, yes, we should watch
thanks,
that.
Jennifer. We needed that. I just thought you'd never give your opinion. And I saw it, though, over the years, because it ran for so long, and I'd come back every so often, and I shadowed on it and everything as the director. And Tyne and I were friends. I really liked her. And she had a baby not too long after I had mine. And she had to stay so many nights in her trailer at the studio with the baby because it was not enough hours to go home and sleep and come back. And I thought, and her marriage broke up, and I thought my marriage would have broken up.
It's a hard way to live.
It's a hard way to live. Those, it wasn't just 12-hour days, it was 14-hour days.
And it's unforgiving.
Yes, and there's no end to it, right? It just, again and again and again, it beats you up.
And very hard to take a day off. Very hard to take a vacation.
Right.
It's hard.
At that point, I came back and I shadowed, and I saw her going back into that trailer with the baby. I thought, Jennifer, I think that was okay. because I have a great son, and I had a wonderful marriage that lasted a long time. And I think in this business that's hard.
Really hard.
And you have to negotiate it.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some things I gave up, but we made it through, and I think that was a blessing.
Yeah.
So I could have done more with my career, and I could have pushed harder, I know.
And at what cost?
Right, but at what cost? And that's why I feel, as you say, successful, not as, the biggest name I could have been, because I think I could have done more if I'd been more focused. But not at that trade-off. I wanted both.
Yeah.
And I feel lucky. And I'm still working in the business, and I'm directing, and I work with the kids, and I'm not working on the deal. I'm working on doing it.
Right.
And I don't just want to be stuck working on making the deal work. It's not worth it.
Because you're doing the actual work.
Right.
Yeah.
We're down there just doing it and practicing and trying things, and that's more interesting to me.
Is there anything you haven't accomplished that you would still like to?
Well, I sure should like to get this series done. It was my idea, and I optioned the book and did the outline, and I just think it would be great. And somebody's going to do it, and I don't know if it's going to be me, but I sure would like to get that going. So we'll see. It's barely been out there because they wanted to get the showrunner before they shopped it. So
it's like you need to have every single thing in place before you can even.
You do. Even if you have money, if you don't have the things in place, you need to bring somewhat of a package.
Because everyone's so risk adverse.
Yeah. And nobody wants to develop anymore.
Right.
So you have to.
You have to be done.
Yeah.
By the time it gets there.
Yeah.
And is there any truth to now people are greenlighting by committee rather than someone having the power to just greenlight?
I think it's always been that way. I don't think it's really any different.
I would think that would
It may be more so now because all those big cable companies they're parts of big companies that they have to go up the ladder.
Yeah.
So they're getting, they've always been risk adverse, but it's such a big, especially for those big series, and this one is, like Game of Thrones size.
Well, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. And we've gotten a lot of the money. It's their showrunner that's so precious.
Yeah.
Because there are only a limited number of them that have done shows like that, and they are all working. And you don't want to get somebody who's not in that category. So it's just really hard.
Are there any women in that category?
Couple, and they're working their tails off. There's a couple wonderful ones, yeah. Not as many, of course, but there are.
The ones that I know that are show running are now doing at least 2 shows.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. They're overwhelmed.
Right. And they're all that are working in that area are all overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to get that package because they're working.
And timing is everything.
This idea, 3-4 years ago when I started out, we got this big production company behind us, we got a lot of money and stuff. I thought, this is going to happen now. And there was a lot of interest in everything. But to get that package together, now I know that there are 2 or 3 other similar or tangentially similar ideas out there. And now it's just about time. Getting it out there first. Because I know it's going to be done.
Yeah. I wonder if when you hit that moment where it happens and it's a go and it's a green light and you're in production, if then you'll look back and think, and you know what? It turned out this is the perfect time that it's happening.
From your lips to God's ears.
May that be the case.
Thank you very much.
It's meant to happen.
It's meant to happen. Thank you.
It'll happen in its perfect time.
Yes.
Which hopefully is this fall.
Yeah, which is now.
Exactly. What do you know about pay equity these days between genders?
Well, that it's off.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I heard something recently that I hadn't heard before, which I thought was really interesting. Somebody did a real survey with a lot of information behind it, that they discovered that so many items that we buy, like moisturizer, that the same company packages it for men in the same size little bottle, and they package it for women in a same size, different looking little bottle. And that little bottle is a quarter to a third more expensive than the man's little bottle.
The pink razors cost more money than the blue razors.
And that goes on throughout everything.
Yeah.
Throughout clothes, throughout food, throughout...
Dry cleaning.
Yes.
Everything.
Everything.
So even if your salary's the same, it's not the same net.
Yes.
The women's products are more expensive. I don't know how we fix that. Now, I think I know how you're going to answer this question, but I want to answer it anyway. Did you ever feel like you had to or did modify your communication style so that you could be heard in this male-dominated business?
Obviously not.
Thank you very, very much.
Good.
This was a pleasure.
This was a pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to The Other 50%. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I want to thank Jennifer Warren for sharing her story. And special thanks to Jonathan Lucas for editing, Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, and on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features and bios of our guests. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
And I'm so glad you're doing this. You know, I mean, the more we have of this, the more the information gets out, the more people say, oh, there are people like me out there. And,
Yes, let's talk.
yeah.
For sure.
I am who I am, but I don't give